Stop anxiety in 60 seconds. A calm mind starts faster than you think. You don't need to understand your anxiety right now. You don't need to fix your life. You don't even need to calm down completely. You just need 60 seconds, not to make anxiety disappear, but to stop it from running you. That's what this book is for. Introduction. There's a moment that happens with anxiety, you know the one. Everything feels fine and then suddenly it doesn't. Your chest tightens, your thoughts speed up, your breathing changes, and before you can even figure out what happened, you're already inside it. It's not gradual. It's immediate, and in that moment, you're told to breathe deeply, to think positive, to remind yourself it's not real. You're told that it's all in your head. You're told to calm down. But none of that works when you're already in it. This book isn't about preventing anxiety from ever showing up. It's about what you do in the first 60 seconds when it does. Because that's where everything gets decided. Not in the hours before. Not in the long philosophical conversation you have with yourself afterward. But in that first minute when your body is reacting faster than your mind can keep up. Most books about anxiety ask you to understand it first, to trace it back to childhood, to examine your thought patterns, to build a new relationship with uncertainty over months or years. And some of that might be helpful eventually. But when anxiety is spiking right now, understanding doesn't stop it. Action does, specific, immediate, body-based action. This book gives you that action, not theory, not philosophy, just what to do when anxiety hits and you still have to function. When you're at work, when you're in public, when you're alone at night and your mind won't stop. When you can feel it building and you know you only have a small window before it takes over completely. We're going to focus on the moment anxiety begins, not the moment it ends. Because if you can interrupt it early, you don't have to ride it all the way through. You don't have to white-knuckle your way to the other side. You get your choice back. You get your agency back, and that changes everything. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not failing at being calm. You're just responding to a system that's moving faster than conscious thought. And when you know how that system works, you can work with it instead of against it. That's what the next 2 hours are about. Not fixing you, not curing anxiety, just giving you something that works in the moment you need it most. Let's begin. Part I: Why Anxiety Hits So Fast. Chapter 1. Anxiety is faster than thought. Anxiety doesn't wait for logic. That's why logic alone never stops it. You've probably noticed this already. You can know, logically, that you're safe. You can remind yourself that nothing bad is actually happening. You can list all the evidence that contradicts the fear. And still the feeling doesn't change. It's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because anxiety doesn't start in the thinking part of your brain. It starts deeper, faster, in a part of your system that doesn't care about evidence or reason or whether your fear makes sense. It cares about one thing: survival. And survival doesn't have time to think. When your brain detects a threat, real or perceived, it doesn't send you a memo. It doesn't ask for your opinion. It just acts. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing quickens. Blood flow redirects. Muscles tense. All of this happens before you've even registered what you're anxious about. You don't decide to feel anxious. You just suddenly are. And then, a second or two later, your thinking brain comes online and tries to make sense of what's happening. It searches for a reason. It finds one, maybe something that's been bothering you, maybe something that could go wrong, maybe nothing specific at all, and then it holds on to that reason like it's the cause. But it's not the cause. It's just the story your mind tells to explain what your body already decided. This is why talking yourself out of anxiety often doesn't work. You're trying to use the slowest part of your brain to override the fastest part. You're bringing logic to a fight that started without it. And here's the thing, that fast system, the one that triggers anxiety, is not your enemy. It's trying to protect you. It's the same system that would pull your hand away from a hot stove before you consciously realized you were burning. It's the same system that makes you jump back from a car that's too close. It's designed to keep you alive. The problem is, it can't always tell the difference between a real threat and a perceived one. It doesn't know the difference between a stranger following you in a dark alley and an email you haven't answered yet. It just knows something feels off, and so it responds the same way. Fast, automatic, physical. This is why anxiety feels so overwhelming, because by the time you're aware of it, your body is already 3 steps ahead. Your nervous system has already made the call, and you're left trying to catch up, trying to explain it, trying to make it stop with thoughts and willpower. But you can't think your way out of a physical response. You have to meet it where it is. You have to work with the body first, not the mind. That doesn't mean your thoughts don't matter. They do. But they matter second. First, you have to interrupt the physical loop. You have to signal to your nervous system that it can stand down, that there's no actual emergency, that you're safe. And you can do that, even when it doesn't feel like it, even when anxiety is already in motion. You just have to know where to intervene. Most people miss the window because they're trying to calm their mind when their body is still in alarm mode. They're trying to think clearly while their system is screaming. And it doesn't work, not because they're doing it wrong, but because they're doing it in the wrong order. Anxiety is faster than thought, so your response has to be faster than thought too. Chapter 2. The first 60 seconds that decide everything. What happens in the first minute determines the next hour. There's a curve to anxiety. It doesn't just appear and stay at the same level. It builds, it escalates. And the speed at which it escalates depends entirely on what you do or don't do in the first 60 seconds. If you catch it early, you can stop it from peaking. If you miss that window, you're riding it all the way up. And once you're at the top, once you're in full panic, it takes much longer to come back down. This is the part most people don't realize. They think anxiety is all or nothing. Either you have it or you don't. But it's not binary. It's a curve. And there's a specific point on that curve where you still have leverage. That point is right at the beginning. In the first 60 seconds, your body is ramping up. Your nervous system is deciding how serious this is. Your heart rate is increasing. Your breathing is shifting. Your muscles are tensing. But none of it is locked in yet. You're still in the early phase, the activation phase, and in that phase, you can still intervene. You can still send a signal that interrupts the escalation. You can still shift your physiology in a way that tells your system we're okay. Stand down, but if you wait, if you ignore it, or fight it, or try to push through, your body interprets that as confirmation. It thinks, okay, this must be serious. We need to go into full defense mode. And then it does. And by that point, you've lost the ability to stop it quickly. You're just holding on until it passes. Here's what the curve looks like. In the first 10 to 15 seconds, You feel the first signal. It might be a tightness in your chest, a flutter in your stomach, a sudden sense of dread. Your thoughts might speed up slightly. You might notice your breathing change. It's subtle, but it's there. This is the earliest warning, and it's also the best moment to act. If you intervene here, if you shift your body, your breath, your focus, you can often stop the anxiety from building at all. You can flatten the curve before it even starts to climb. But most people don't act here. They either don't notice it yet, or they notice it and think, I'll deal with this in a minute. They keep doing whatever they were doing. They keep scrolling, keep working, keep talking, and the signal gets louder. By 30 seconds in, the anxiety is more obvious. Your heart is beating faster. Your thoughts are racing. You might feel heat in your face or a tightness in your throat. You might start scanning for what's wrong. Your mind is searching for a reason, and it will find one even if it has to make one up. This is still a good window. You can still intervene, but it takes a little more effort now. The momentum is building. By 60 seconds in, if you haven't done anything, the anxiety is climbing fast. Your body has decided this is a real threat. Your breathing is shallow. Your muscles are locked. Your mind is looping. You're inside it now. You're not just noticing anxiety, you are anxious. And from here, it can take 10, 20, sometimes 30 minutes to fully come down, even if you do everything right. But if you act in the first 60 seconds, if you catch it early, you can be back to baseline in 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes less. That's the difference. That's why the first minute matters so much. Most people think the goal is to get better at handling full-blown anxiety, to get better at writing it out. And sure, that's useful, but it's also exhausting. It's like getting better at surviving car crashes instead of learning how to brake. The real skill is stopping it before it peaks. And you do that by recognizing the early signs and acting immediately. Not in 5 minutes, not after you finish what you're doing. Right then. This doesn't mean you have to drop everything and go meditate in a quiet room. You don't need to leave the meeting or pull over the car or lock yourself in a bathroom. You just need to do one small, specific thing that interrupts the escalation. We'll get to exactly what that thing is in a later chapter. For now, the important part is understanding that there is a window, a moment where you still have control. And the more you practice catching it, the easier it gets. You start to recognize the early signs faster. You start to trust that you can intervene. And over time, anxiety stops escalating as often because your system learns that you're paying attention, that you're not ignoring the signal, that you're responding. And when your system knows you're responding, it doesn't have to scream as loud. Chapter 3. You're not weak, you're triggered. This isn't about strength, it's about timing. When anxiety hits, it's easy to feel like you failed, like you should have been able to prevent it, like if you were stronger, calmer, more put together, this wouldn't be happening. But that's not how it works. Anxiety doesn't care how strong you are. It doesn't care how many books you've read or how much therapy you've done or how well you handled it last time. It just cares about whether something in your environment or your internal state matched a pattern your nervous system has learned to fear. That's what a trigger is. A trigger isn't a weakness, it's a learned association. It's your brain recognizing something, a sound, a sensation, a thought, a situation that it has linked to danger in the past. And when it recognizes that pattern, it reacts. Instantly, automatically. You don't choose to be triggered, you just are. And the response happens so fast that it feels unfair. One second you're fine, the next second you're not. And you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't think the wrong thought or fail to practice enough gratitude or let your guard down. You just encountered something your system flagged as a potential threat. Triggers can be obvious: a specific place where something bad happened, a person who reminds you of someone who hurt you, a smell, a song, a phrase. These are the ones you might recognize and anticipate. But triggers can also be invisible: a certain tone of voice, a particular time of day, the way someone looks at you, a sensation in your body that feels like the beginning of panic, which then causes more panic, a thought that brushes up against a fear you've been avoiding. These are harder to track because they don't feel like external events. They feel like they come from nowhere. But they don't come from nowhere. They come from your system doing exactly what it's designed to do, scanning for threats and reacting when it finds one. And here's the thing that most people don't realize. You can be triggered by safety. This sounds backwards, but it's true. If you spend a long time in survival mode, if you've been stressed, anxious, or on edge for weeks or months, your nervous system gets used to that state. It becomes your baseline, and when things finally calm down, when you finally have a moment to rest, your system doesn't know what to do with that. It feels unfamiliar, unsafe, like something must be wrong if you're not worried about something. And so it creates something to worry about. It pulls up a fear. It scans for danger. It triggers anxiety just to return you to the state it knows. This is why anxiety sometimes spikes on weekends, or on vacation, or right after you finish a big project. It's not random. It's your system trying to regulate itself back to what feels normal, even if what feels normal is actually just chronic stress. None of this is your fault. You didn't install these triggers. You didn't choose to have a nervous system that's sensitive or reactive or prone to false alarms. You're just working with the system you have. And that system has learned certain things. Some of those things are helpful. Some of them aren't, but all of them made sense at the time. Your anxiety is not a character flaw. It's not a sign that you're broken or weak or not trying hard enough. It's a sign that your system is doing exactly what it evolved to do: protect you. The problem is, it's protecting you from things that aren't actually dangerous anymore. And so the work isn't about becoming stronger. It's about teaching your system that it's safe to stand down, that it doesn't need to react so fast or so hard, that you've got this. That teaching takes time, but it starts with removing the shame. When you feel anxiety rising and you think, I shouldn't be feeling this, you add a second layer of suffering on top of the first. You're not just anxious, you're anxious about being anxious. You're not just triggered, you're ashamed of being triggered. And that shame makes everything harder. Because now you're not just dealing with the physical response. You're also dealing with the story that you're failing. That this means something bad about you. That you should be past this by now. But you're not failing, you're just human. And humans get triggered, all of them. Some more than others, some more visibly than others. But everyone has something that bypasses their logic and goes straight to their nervous system. You're not special in that way. You're just aware of it. So when anxiety comes, when you feel that spike, that tightness, that flood of fear, the first thing to do is not to fight it, not to shame yourself for it, not to ask, why is this happening again? The first thing to do is just notice it. Name it. I'm triggered. That's it. No judgment. No story. Just I'm triggered. My system is reacting. This is what it does. And then you can respond. Not from shame or frustration or desperation, but from clarity, from the understanding that this is a pattern, not a truth, a reaction, not a verdict. You're not weak, you're just triggered. And now you know what to do. Part 2: Stopping Anxiety in Real Time. Chapter 4: What Not to Do When Anxiety Starts. The fastest way to panic is to fight panic. When anxiety begins, your instinct is probably to make it stop immediately, to push it away, to suppress it, to force yourself to calm down. And that makes sense. Of course you want it gone. It's uncomfortable. It's disruptive. It doesn't belong here. But here's the problem: the more you fight it, the stronger it gets. Anxiety feeds on resistance. Think about what happens when you try to force yourself to calm down. You tell yourself, stop it. Just stop. You're fine. There's no reason to feel this way. You clench your jaw. You tighten your body. You hold your breath without realizing it. You try to will the feeling away. And what happens? It gets worse. Your heart beats faster. Your thoughts spiral harder. The tightness in your chest intensifies. Because your nervous system doesn't interpret that resistance as calm. It interprets it as more threat. You're essentially telling your body, this feeling is dangerous. We need to get rid of it right now. And your body hears that and thinks, oh, so this is serious. We need to amp up the response. So it is. This is one of the cruelest paradoxes of anxiety. The thing you most want to do make it stop is the thing that makes it worse. Fighting anxiety is like struggling in quicksand. The harder you fight, the deeper you sink. And yet most people's first response is to fight, to resist, to try to think their way out or force their way through. Because that's what we've been taught. That discomfort is something to eliminate. That feelings are problems to solve. That if we just try hard enough, we can control everything. But you can't control anxiety by fighting it. You can only control it by not fighting it. There's another mistake people make. They try to distract themselves. They scroll through their phone, turn on the television, start cleaning, throw themselves into work, anything to not feel what they're feeling. And sometimes distraction works if the anxiety is mild. If it's just starting, a shift in focus can be enough to let it pass. But if the anxiety is already building, if your body is already activated, distraction doesn't stop it. It just delays it, because your nervous system doesn't forget. It doesn't go, oh, they're watching a video now. Guess we'll cancel the alarm. It keeps running the program in the background. And the moment you stop distracting yourself, the anxiety is still there, often stronger than before. Distraction can be useful as a tool, but not as a strategy, not as your only response. Because if your default is to avoid the feeling, you never actually process it. You never teach your system that it's safe. You just teach it that anxiety is something to run from. And what do we know about running from things? It makes them chase us. Then there's the opposite mistake. Overthinking. When anxiety hits, some people immediately try to figure out why. They analyze. They search for the cause. They retrace their steps. What triggered this? What am I afraid of? What does this mean? And again, understanding can be helpful later, but in the moment, when your body is already in fight or flight, trying to analyze your anxiety just keeps you stuck in your head. It keeps the loop running. Your thinking brain is trying to solve a problem that your feeling brain created. And the feeling brain doesn't care about your analysis. It's not listening, it's reacting. So you end up spinning, thinking in circles, getting more frustrated. And the anxiety doesn't lessen, it just gets more complicated. Here's what not to do when anxiety starts. Don't fight it. Don't suppress it. Don't try to distract yourself from it completely. Don't try to analyze it in real time. Don't tell yourself you're being ridiculous. Don't shame yourself for feeling it. Don't hold your breath. Don't tense up and wait for it to pass. All of these responses, all of them send the same message to your nervous system: this is bad. This is dangerous. We need to fix this right now. And your nervous system responds accordingly. So what do you do instead? You do the thing that feels counterintuitive. You let it be there. Not forever, not as a permanent state, but for a moment, for 10 seconds, for one breath. You stop resisting. You stop fighting. You let the feeling exist without making it mean something terrible about you or your future or your safety. You make space for it. And in that space, in that brief moment of non-resistance, your nervous system gets a different message. It gets, okay, this isn't an emergency. We don't need to escalate. And that's when things start to shift. This doesn't mean you do nothing. You're not just sitting there drowning in anxiety. You're doing something very specific. You're interrupting the fight. You're changing your relationship to the feeling. And that changes everything. We'll get to exactly how to do that in the next chapter. But first, you have to stop doing the things that make it worse. You have to stop fighting. Chapter 5. The 60-second reset that interrupts the loop. Anxiety can't survive interruption. There's a moment in every anxiety spiral where the loop is still forming, where it hasn't locked in yet, where your body is ramping up, but it hasn't fully committed. And if you can interrupt that moment, if you can insert something unexpected, something that doesn't fit the pattern, the loop breaks. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't solve everything. But it stops escalating. And that's enough. This is the 60-second reset. It's not a meditation. It's not a breathing exercise you have to do perfectly. It's not something that requires a quiet room or a calm mind or ideal conditions. It's just a sequence. A specific set of actions that your body recognizes as safety. And when your body recognizes safety, it starts to stand down. Here's how it works. Step 1. Notice the moment you feel anxiety beginning, the tightness, the racing thoughts, the shift in your breathing, you name it. Out loud if you can. In your head if you can't. You say, this is anxiety. Not I'm anxious, not something's wrong. Just this is anxiety. You're not judging it. You're not analyzing it. You're just labeling it. And that small act of labeling, that moment of stepping back and naming what's happening, creates a tiny bit of distance between you and the feeling. You're no longer just inside it. You're observing it. Step 2. Ground. You bring your attention to something physical. Something you can feel right now in this moment. The weight of your body in the chair. Your feet on the floor. Your hands resting on your lap. The fabric of your shirt against your skin. You don't have to focus hard. You just notice. For 5 seconds. Maybe 10. This pulls you out of your head and into your body. Not to fight the anxiety. Just to remind your system that you're here. That you're present, that you're not lost in the future or the past. You're here, right now. And right now, in this specific second, you're physically safe. Step 3. Lengthen your exhale. You don't have to take a deep breath. You don't have to breathe slowly or perfectly or count to any specific number. You just make your next exhale a little longer than your inhale. Breathe in for 3 seconds. Breathe out for 4 or 5. Whatever feels natural. Do this 3 times. Maybe 4. The inhale doesn't matter as much. It's the exhale that signals safety. Long, slow exhales tell your vagus nerve, the nerve that controls your rest and digest response, that there's no emergency, that it's okay to relax. Your body listens to that signal, even when your mind doesn't believe it yet. Step 4. Soften something. Your jaw, your shoulders, your hands. Pick one part of your body that's tense and consciously let it release. Just a little. You don't have to force it. Just notice the tension and let it soften. This sends another signal to your nervous system. Tight muscles mean danger. Soft muscles mean safety. Even a small release can shift the balance. That's it. Notice. Ground. Lengthen your exhale. Soften something. 4 steps, 60 seconds. And in that 60 seconds, you've interrupted the loop. You've stopped the escalation. You've given your body a different set of inputs that contradict the panic. You're not trying to make the anxiety disappear. You're just stopping it from getting worse. This won't work every time. Some days the anxiety is too far along. Some days the trigger is too strong. Some days you'll do the reset and still feel terrible. That's okay. This isn't about perfection. It's about interruption. And even on the days when it doesn't fully calm you down, it still keeps you from spiraling all the way up. It still gives you a foothold, a moment of agency, and over time those moments add up. The more you practice this, the more you catch anxiety early and interrupt it, the more your nervous system learns that it doesn't have to go into full alarm mode. It learns that you're paying attention, that you're responding, that it can trust you to handle things. And when your system trusts you, it stops reacting so hard. It takes time, but it works. Here's the important part: you have to do this before the anxiety peaks. Not after, not when you're already in full panic. Before, in the first 60 seconds, when you feel the first tightness, the first flutter, the first thought that loops. That's when you act, not 5 minutes later. Not after you finish what you're doing. Right then. You don't need to stop your life. You don't need to leave the room or cancel your plans or explain yourself to anyone. You just need to pause for 60 seconds and run the sequence. Notice, ground. Lengthen your exhale. Soften something. And then you keep going. You go back to the meeting. You go back to the conversation. You go back to whatever you were doing. But now the anxiety isn't running you. You interrupted it. And that makes all the difference. Chapter 6. When your body is panicking, not your mind. You don't need reassurance. You need regulation. There's a type of anxiety that doesn't come with thoughts. No spiral, no catastrophic story, no specific fear you can name. Your body just panics. Your heart races. Your breathing goes shallow, your hands shake. You feel dizzy or nauseous or like you can't get enough air. And your mind scrambles to figure out why. It searches for a reason, but there isn't one, or at least not one that makes sense. Because the panic isn't coming from your thoughts. It's coming from your nervous system. This is one of the hardest types of anxiety to deal with. Because you can't talk yourself out of it. There's no irrational thought to challenge. No story to reframe. Your body is just in fight or flight. And your mind is along for the ride. And when this happens, the usual tools don't work. Positive thinking doesn't help. Reassurance doesn't help. Telling yourself you're safe doesn't help. Because your body isn't listening to your words. It's listening to your physiology, and the only way to calm it down is to change your physiology. This is what regulation means. Not controlling your thoughts. Not convincing yourself everything is fine. Just giving your body the signals it needs to shift out of alarm mode. Your nervous system runs on inputs. Physical inputs. The position of your body. The rhythm of your breath. The tension in your muscles. The temperature of your skin. The movement of your limbs. It takes all of those inputs and decides, are we safe or are we in danger? And if enough of those inputs say danger, your body panics, even if there's no actual threat, even if you're sitting in a safe room doing nothing. So to stop the panic, you have to change the inputs. You have to give your body sensations that contradict the alarm. Sensations that say we're safe. We're grounded, we're okay, and the fastest way to do that is through your body, not your mind. Here's what that looks like in practice. If your heart is racing, you can't slow it down by thinking about it, but you can slow it down by lengthening your exhales, by pressing your feet firmly into the ground, by splashing cold water on your face. If your breathing is shallow and tight, you can't force it to deepen. But you can hum, you can sigh. You can blow out through pursed lips like you're blowing out a candle. If your muscles are locked and tense, you can't just tell them to relax. But you can shake them out. You can stretch. You can squeeze something tightly and then release it. These aren't tricks, they're tools. They work because they change the physical state your nervous system is responding to. One of the most effective techniques is called bilateral stimulation. It sounds complicated, but it's simple. You just alternate movement or sensation between the left and right sides of your body. You can tap your thighs left, right, left, right. You can cross your arms and tap your shoulders. You can march in place. You can move your eyes side to side. This type of rhythmic, alternating movement activates both hemispheres of your brain and helps regulate your nervous system. It's calming in a way that doesn't require thought. Your body just responds to the pattern. Another powerful tool is pressure, deep pressure. You can press your hands together hard and hold for 10 seconds. You can squeeze your own shoulders. You can push your palms against a wall. You can wrap yourself in a blanket or hug a pillow tightly. Pressure signals safety. It's the same reason weighted blankets work. It's the same reason being hugged can calm you down. Your nervous system interprets firm, even pressure as containment, as security, and when it feels secure, it can start to let go of the alarm. Cold is another input that works fast. Cold water on your face, ice cubes in your hands, a cold cloth on the back of your neck. Cold triggers something called the dive reflex. It's a survival mechanism that slows your heart rate and redirects blood flow. Your body shifts out of fight or flight and into a different mode, a calmer mode. It's not comfortable, but it's effective. And sometimes, when your body is panicking and nothing else is working, a sharp, physical sensation is exactly what you need to interrupt the loop. You don't have to do all of these things. You just need one thing that works for you. One thing you can reach for when your body is panicking and your mind has no idea why. And the more you use it, the more your system learns to recognize it as a cue, a signal that says we're handling this. We're okay. Over time, just the act of reaching for that tool can start to calm you down. Because your body remembers. It knows what comes next. Here's the key: you can't regulate a panicking body with thoughts alone. You have to meet it where it is. You have to speak its language, and its language is sensation, movement, breath, pressure, temperature, not words. When your body is in alarm mode, It's not listening to logic, it's listening to survival signals. And the only way to shift it is to give it different signals. Physical ones. That's what regulation is. Not talking yourself down, not waiting for the panic to pass. Just changing the inputs your nervous system is receiving until it feels safe enough to stand down. You don't need reassurance, you need regulation. And now you know how to give it to yourself. Part 7: When Anxiety Comes Back Again. Chapter 7: Why Anxiety Returns After You Calm Down. Relief without understanding is temporary. You've probably experienced this. The anxiety spikes. You manage to calm down. You feel better. You think it's over. And then, an hour later or a day later, it's back. Same feeling, same intensity. Like nothing you did mattered. And it's frustrating. Disheartening. It makes you feel like you're not getting anywhere. Like you're stuck in a loop you can't escape. But here's the thing: the anxiety isn't coming back because you failed. It's coming back because the underlying activation never fully resolved. When you calm yourself down in the moment, you're interrupting the acute spike. You're bringing your nervous system down from the peak. And that's good, that's necessary. But it's not the same thing as resetting your baseline. Think of it like this. Your nervous system has a baseline level of activation. On a calm day, that baseline is low. You're relaxed, grounded, easeful. But when you've been stressed for a while, when you've had a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension, a lot of things demanding your attention, that baseline rises. Your system gets stuck in a state of low-level alarm. Not full panic, just heightened, alert, on edge. And from that elevated baseline, it doesn't take much to push you over into anxiety again. A small trigger, a stray thought, a physical sensation, and suddenly you're right back in it. This is why anxiety can feel so unpredictable. It's not actually random. It's just that your nervous system is already primed, already close to the edge. And so things that wouldn't normally trigger you suddenly do. The anxiety returns not because you did something wrong, but because the system never fully calmed. It dipped below the threshold for a while, but it didn't reset, and until it resets, it will keep coming back. So how do you reset? Not by doing more in the moment, not by getting better at calming down during the spike. That's still important, but it's not enough. You reset by lowering your baseline, by teaching your nervous system that it doesn't need to stay on high alert all the time, that it's safe to fully relax, to fully rest, and that happens slowly, over days, through repetition. It means building in moments of actual rest, not just distraction, not just zoning out, but intentional, restorative calm. It means noticing when you're holding tension in your body throughout the day and letting it go. Not once, repeatedly. Because your system doesn't learn from one release. It learns from patterns. It means giving yourself permission to not be productive for a few minutes. To not be on. To not be managing or solving or anticipating. Just to be. Your nervous system needs proof, repeated, consistent proof that it's okay to let its guard down. That nothing bad happens when it does. That safety is real and sustained, not just a brief pause between threats. And you give it that proof by creating those moments, by interrupting the cycle of constant vigilance, by showing your system again and again that rest is possible. This is why people who only address anxiety in the moment often feel stuck. They get good at managing the spikes. They know what to do when it hits, but they never address the underlying hum. the low-level tension that makes them vulnerable to the spikes in the first place. And so the anxiety keeps returning, not because the tools don't work, but because the system never fully settled. There's another reason anxiety returns, and this one is harder to talk about. Sometimes your mind brings it back on purpose, not consciously, not because you want to feel anxious, but because your brain is trying to solve something. It's trying to figure out what went wrong, to make sense of the fear, to prepare for the next time. And in doing that, it keeps the anxiety alive. You replay the moment. You analyze what happened. You try to understand why you felt that way. And every time you do, you reactivate the pattern. You fire the same neural pathways. You reinforce the loop. This doesn't mean you shouldn't ever think about your anxiety. Reflection has its place, but there's a difference between productive reflection and rumination. Productive reflection asks, what can I learn from this? What do I need? How can I respond differently next time? Rumination asks, why did this happen? What's wrong with me? What if it happens again? One moves you forward, the other keeps you stuck. When you catch yourself ruminating, when you notice you're looping through the same thoughts, the same worries, the same questions, you have to interrupt it. Not harshly, not with shame, just with a redirect. You say, I've thought about this enough for now. I'm choosing to focus on something else. And then you do. You shift your attention. You engage with something present, something real. It won't feel natural at first. Your mind will want to go back. It will feel like unfinished business. But you don't have to finish it. You just have to let it rest. Over time, your brain learns that it doesn't need to keep running the loop. That thinking about it more doesn't make you safer. That letting it go is okay. And when it learns that, the anxiety stops returning as often. It stops feeling so sticky, so persistent, because you're no longer feeding it. Relief without understanding is temporary, but understanding without action is also temporary. You need both. You need to understand why the anxiety returns, and you need to take action, small, consistent action to lower the baseline and interrupt the patterns. That's how you break the cycle. Not by calming down better, but by staying calmer longer. Chapter 8. Myra staying functional while anxious. You don't have to feel okay to function. There's a belief that you need to be calm before you can do anything. That anxiety disqualifies you from work, from socializing, from showing up, that you have to fix how you feel before you can move forward. But that's not true. You can be anxious and still function. You can feel terrible and still show up. Not perfectly, not at your best, but well enough. And sometimes, just showing up while anxious is what starts to make the anxiety lessen. Because you prove to yourself that the fear isn't as disabling as it feels. This is what Myra is. It's not about being fully calm. It's about finding tiny pockets of steadiness within the anxiety. Enough to get through the next 5 minutes, the next conversation, the next task. You're not trying to eliminate the feeling. You're just trying to function alongside it. And that requires a different approach, a lighter touch. When you're anxious at work, you don't need to excuse yourself and meditate for 20 minutes. You just need something small, something no one will notice. You can press your feet into the floor while you're sitting at your desk. You can clench and release your hands under the table. You can take one slow exhale before you respond to an email. You can focus on one thing at a time instead of trying to hold everything in your mind at once. Just the next sentence, the next line of code, the next decision. Meyerwalm isn't about doing less. It's about narrowing your focus so the anxiety doesn't spill into everything. In meetings, when your heart is racing and your thoughts are loud, you can anchor yourself to something external, the voice of the person speaking, the texture of the chair, the weight of your pen in your hand. You don't have to contribute perfectly. You don't have to seem completely engaged. You just have to be present enough that you can follow along, that you can nod, that you can say, "I'll think about that and get back to you." No one knows what's happening inside you, and you don't have to tell them. You just have to get through. When you're anxious in public, the fear often isn't just the anxiety itself. It's the fear that other people will notice, that you'll do something embarrassing, that you'll lose control in front of everyone. But most of the time, no one notices. People are focused on themselves, on their own thoughts, their own discomfort. They're not watching you as closely as you think. And even if they do notice something, even if you seem quiet or distracted or off, they probably won't think it's anxiety. They'll think you're tired or preoccupied or just having a normal human moment. You can give yourself permission to step back slightly without fully leaving. You can let someone else lead the conversation. You can take a bathroom break not because you need the bathroom, but because you need 60 seconds alone. You can say, "I need a minute," and not explain why. You can opt out of small talk and just smile and nod. You don't have to perform wellness. You just have to be there, and being there, even imperfectly, is enough. The key to Meyerwalm is not trying to do too much at once. Not trying to fix the anxiety and perform your tasks and manage other people's perceptions all at the same time. You just pick one thing to focus on, and you let the rest blur into the background. If you're in a conversation, you focus on listening, not on how you're coming across, not on what you'll say next, just listening. If you're walking somewhere, you focus on the act of walking, not on who might be looking at you, not on what might go wrong, just the movement, one thing, one moment. There's a technique that helps with this. It's called grounding through the senses. When anxiety is making everything feel overwhelming and chaotic, you bring yourself back by naming what you can sense right now. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. You don't have to do the whole sequence, just enough to pull you out of your head and into the present. Because anxiety lies in the future, in the what-ifs, in the imagined disasters. And the present moment, the actual physical moment, is usually okay. Not great, not comfortable, but okay. And okay is enough to function. Meyerwalm isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about not letting the anxiety take up more space than it needs to. Yes, you're anxious. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But it doesn't have to become the only thing. It doesn't have to stop everything. You can hold the anxiety and hold your life at the same time. Not forever, not as a permanent state, but for now, for today, for this meeting, this task, this hour. And here's what happens when you do this. When you function while anxious instead of waiting until you feel calm, you start to trust yourself more. You start to see that anxiety doesn't make you incapable. It just makes things harder. And you can do hard things. You prove to yourself and to your nervous system that the fear is lying, that you won't fall apart, that you won't lose control, that you can handle it. And that proof over time makes the anxiety less intense, because your system learns that it doesn't need to protect you so aggressively, that you've got this. You don't have to feel okay to function. You just have to function, and the functioning itself will help you feel more okay. Chapter 9. Anxiety at night, anxiety in silence. Anxiety loves quiet because nothing distracts you from it. During the day, there's noise, there are tasks, there are people, there's movement and demand and distraction. Your mind has things to focus on. Your body has things to do. And even if the anxiety is there, it's not the only thing. But at night, when the world goes quiet, when you're lying in bed with nothing to do and nowhere to be, that's when the anxiety takes over. Because there's nothing left to distract you from it. This is why so many people struggle with anxiety at night. Not because the anxiety is worse, but because the container around it is gone. During the day, you can outrun it. At night, you can't. You're just there, in the dark, alone with your thoughts. And the thoughts that were manageable during the day suddenly feel overwhelming. Night anxiety often doesn't make sense. It's not always about something specific. It's just a feeling, a heaviness, a tightness, a sense of dread that you can't explain or shake. And the more you lie there, the worse it gets. Your mind starts searching for a reason. It pulls up worries, old regrets, future fears. Things you haven't thought about in weeks suddenly feel urgent. You try to push them away. You tell yourself to just go to sleep. But the thoughts keep coming, and now you're not just anxious, you're also frustrated that you can't sleep. And that frustration adds another layer. The first thing to understand about night anxiety is that it's not just mental. It's physical. Your nervous system doesn't fully settle during the day. You carry the tension from work, from interactions, from suppressed emotions, from the constant low-level vigilance of being alive in the world. And at night, when you finally stop moving, all of that unprocessed activation floods in. Your body hasn't had a chance to release it. So it releases it now, while you're lying still, while you're trying to rest. And it feels like anxiety, but it's also just discharge. Your system trying to process what it didn't have time to process earlier. So the solution isn't to fight it. It's not to lie there and will yourself to relax. It's to help your body complete the cycle. You can do this before you even get into bed. You can stretch. You can shake out your arms and legs. You can tense and release your muscles one area at a time. You can take a few minutes to just let your body move in whatever way feels right. This helps discharge the physical tension so it's not sitting there waiting to surface the moment you lie down. Another thing that helps, a very short wind-down routine. Not an hour-long ritual, just 5 or 10 minutes of the same few things. In the same order, every night. It doesn't matter what the things are. What matters is the pattern, the repetition, because your nervous system recognizes patterns. And when it recognizes the pattern that comes before sleep, it starts to shift into rest mode automatically. You could dim the lights and stretch. You could wash your face and sit quietly for a few breaths. You could write down 3 things from the day, not gratitudes, not achievements, just 3 things that happened. It doesn't have to be profound. It just has to be consistent. When you're already in bed and the anxiety is there, the worst thing you can do is lie still and try to force yourself to sleep. Your body will interpret that stillness as freeze, as helplessness, and that will make the anxiety worse. So instead you move, just a little. You can stretch your legs. You can flex your feet. You can roll your shoulders. You can place your hands on your stomach and feel it rise and fall with your breath. You're not trying to be still. You're trying to be present. If the thoughts are loud, if your mind is racing and you can't slow it down, you can try a technique called mental noting. You don't engage with the thoughts. You just label them: worry, planning, memory, worry, judging, worry. You're not analyzing them. You're not solving them. You're just noticing the category and then letting them pass. This keeps you from getting pulled into the content of the thoughts. You're observing them, not living them. And when you observe instead of engage, the thoughts lose their grip. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is get out of bed. Not to give up on sleep, but to interrupt the loop. If you've been lying there for 20 minutes and the anxiety is still high, staying in bed is just training your brain to associate your bed with anxiety. So you get up, you sit somewhere else. You do something quiet and boring. You read a few pages of something that doesn't matter. You fold laundry. You stare at the wall. Not something stimulating, not your phone. Just something that lets your system reset. And then, when you feel even slightly calmer, you go back to bed. Night anxiety is hard because it feels like there's no escape. Like you're trapped with the feeling until morning. But you're not trapped. You have options. You can move. You can breathe. You can shift your focus. You can get up. You can lie back down. You can be gentle with yourself instead of demanding that you be different than you are right now. You don't have to sleep perfectly. You don't have to feel calm before you're allowed to rest. You just have to let your system know that nighttime is safe, that the quiet is safe, that nothing is required of you in this moment except to be here. And over time, your body will start to believe it. Anxiety loves quiet because nothing distracts you from it. But quiet can also become the place where you learn to be with yourself, where the noise finally stops, and you realize you're okay. Part 5: Training your system to calm faster. Chapter 10: Teaching your body that you're safe. Your body learns safety through repetition, not explanation. You can tell yourself you're safe 1,000 times. You can list all the evidence. You can logically prove that there's no danger. And your body still won't believe you. Because your body doesn't learn through words. It learns through experience. It learns through what happens. Through patterns. Through repeated proof that what you're saying is true. And until it has that proof, until it has felt safety enough times to trust it, it will keep defaulting to alarm. This is why affirmations alone don't work for anxiety. They're not bad, they're just incomplete. Telling yourself "I am safe" while your nervous system is screaming the opposite doesn't create change. It creates dissonance. Your body needs more than words. It needs sensations, actions, moments where it actually feels safe, where the environment confirms what you're trying to tell it. And then it needs those moments again and again until the pattern is stronger than the fear. Teaching your body that it's safe is not a one-time thing. It's a practice, a slow, steady accumulation of experiences that contradict the alarm. And it starts with noticing when you already feel safe. Most people only pay attention to their nervous system when something's wrong, when they're anxious, tense, overwhelmed. They don't notice the moments when they're actually okay. But those moments matter. Those moments are the evidence your system needs. So you start by catching them, by pausing when you're calm, even slightly calm, and noticing it. You're sitting with your coffee in the morning and there's a moment of quiet. You're walking and the sun is warm on your skin. You're finishing a task and you feel a small sense of relief. You stop, just for a few seconds, and you notice, right now I'm okay. You let your body register it. You let the feeling sink in. because your nervous system needs to know what safety feels like. It needs a reference point, and the more you give it that reference point, the more it can recognize it in other moments. You can also create safety cues deliberately, small, consistent signals that tell your body it's okay to relax. It could be a specific place, a corner of your home that you only use for rest, a chair by the window, a spot on the couch. It could be a sensory cue, a particular scent, a soft blanket, a certain type of music. It could be a physical action, placing your hand on your heart, taking 3 slow breaths, saying a specific phrase to yourself. It doesn't matter what the cue is. What matters is that you use it consistently, that you pair it with moments of actual calm, so that over time the cue itself becomes calming. Your body starts to learn when this happens, we're safe. When I smell this, we're okay. When I sit here, I can let go. And eventually, the cue alone can help shift your state, because your nervous system has learned the pattern. This is classical conditioning, the same way Pavlov's dogs learn to associate a bell with food. Your body can learn to associate certain cues with safety, and once it learns that, you have a tool, a shortcut, a way to signal calm even when your mind is still spinning. Another way to teach your body safety is through rhythm and routine. Your nervous system finds regulation in predictability. When it knows what's coming next, it doesn't have to stay on high alert. It can relax into the pattern. This is why consistent sleep and wake times help. Why eating at regular intervals helps. Why having a morning routine, even a very simple one, can make the whole day feel steadier. You're not controlling your life. You're just giving your system a framework, a sense of order. And that sense of order is calming. It also helps to practice safety in your body when you're not anxious. Most people only engage with their nervous system when they're trying to fix something. But you can also engage with it when things are fine. When you're neutral, when you're calm. You can practice the 60-second reset when you're not activated. You can practice grounding when you don't need it. You can practice slow breathing just because. This trains your body to know what regulation feels like, so that when anxiety does hit, the tools aren't foreign. They're familiar. Your system already knows how to respond. And one of the most powerful ways to teach your body safety is through rest. Real rest, not just sleep, not just zoning out, but intentional, restorative rest. Lying down in the middle of the day for 10 minutes, sitting outside and doing nothing, letting yourself be bored, letting yourself be still without filling the space with productivity or distraction. Your nervous system needs to know that it's allowed to fully stop, that nothing bad happens when it does, that rest is safe, and it learns that through experience, through you actually giving it permission to rest. Again and again. Teaching your body that it's safe is not fast. It's not dramatic. It doesn't happen in one conversation or one meditation session. It happens slowly, through tiny, repeated moments, through consistency, through showing up for yourself in the same small ways over and over until your system finally believes you. But it does work, not perfectly. Not every day, but over time. You'll notice the anxiety won't spike as high. It won't last as long. You'll catch it earlier. You'll calm down faster. Because your body has learned. It's learned that you're paying attention, that you're responding, that it doesn't have to scream to get your attention. It's learned that you can be trusted. And when your body trusts you, everything changes. Chapter 11. Anxiety doesn't mean something is wrong with you. Anxiety is information, not a verdict. When anxiety shows up, it's easy to take it personally, to feel like it's proof of something, proof that you're weak, that you're broken, that you're not handling life the way you should be. But anxiety isn't a judgment. It's not a reflection of your worth or your capability or your character. It's just information. It's your system saying something feels off. I'm not sure what, but I'm alerting you just in case. That's it. Sometimes the information is accurate. Sometimes there is something that needs your attention, a boundary that needs to be set, a situation that needs to change, a need that isn't being met, and the anxiety is just your body's way of flagging that, of saying, hey, this doesn't feel right. We should probably look at this. In those cases, the anxiety is useful. It's a signal, and once you address what it's pointing to, it usually eases. But sometimes often the anxiety isn't pointing to anything real. It's a false alarm, a glitch. Your system reacting to a pattern that resembles danger but isn't actually dangerous. And in those cases, the anxiety isn't useful, but it's still not a verdict. It's not proof that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's just your system being overly cautious, overprotective, doing what it was designed to do, even when it doesn't need to. The problem is most people don't see it that way. They see anxiety as evidence of failure, of inadequacy, of something broken inside them that needs to be fixed. And that belief makes the anxiety worse, because now you're not just dealing with the feeling, you're also dealing with the shame of having the feeling. You're anxious about being anxious. You're afraid of your own fear, and that creates a second loop. A medic anxiety that has nothing to do with the original trigger and everything to do with how you've learned to interpret anxiety. So one of the most important things you can do is change that interpretation, to stop seeing anxiety as a problem with you, and start seeing it as a response, a reaction, a pattern your nervous system has learned. It's not who you are. It's just something that happens to you sometimes, like getting a headache, or feeling tired, or catching a cold. You wouldn't look at a headache and think, this means I'm fundamentally broken. You just think, I have a headache. That's uncomfortable. I'll deal with it. Anxiety is the same. This doesn't mean you ignore it. It doesn't mean you dismiss it or pretend it's not a big deal when it is. It just means you stop making it mean something about your value as a person. You separate the feeling from the story. The feeling is I'm experiencing anxiety right now. The story is I'm experiencing anxiety, which means I'm weak, which means I can't handle my life, which means I'll never be okay. The feeling is real. The story is optional. And when you drop the story, the feeling becomes more manageable, because you're not carrying the weight of shame on top of it. You're just carrying the anxiety. And anxiety by itself is uncomfortable, but it's not unbearable. It's the shame that makes it unbearable. So you practice separating the two. You notice when the story starts to creep in, and you gently set it aside. I'm anxious. That's hard, but it doesn't mean anything about who I am. There's another layer to this, a deeper one. A lot of people believe that if they're anxious, it means they're not doing enough, not meditating enough, not exercising enough, not eating right, not thinking positively, not practicing gratitude, not working on themselves hard enough. They believe that if they just tried harder, the anxiety would go away, but that's not how it works. Anxiety doesn't disappear because you do everything right. It diminishes when your nervous system feels safe. And sometimes, no matter how much you do, Your system is still processing old patterns, old wounds, old fears that haven't fully healed yet. And that's okay. You're not failing because you still feel anxious. You're just human, and humans carry things. We carry stress. We carry sensitivity. We carry the imprints of everything we've been through. And some of that takes time to work through. More time than we'd like. More time than feels fair. But it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means you're still in it. Still learning, still figuring it out. And that's allowed. One of the kindest things you can do for yourself is let go of the idea that you should be past this by now, that you should have healed faster, that anxiety shouldn't still be showing up. Because as long as you're fighting with the fact that it's here, you're adding more suffering on top of the anxiety itself. But when you accept that it's here not forever, but for now, the fight softens, the resistance eases. And in that softening, the anxiety often lessens too. Not because you gave up, but because you stopped making it worse. Anxiety is information. Sometimes it's accurate information. Sometimes it's not. But either way, it's not a verdict on who you are. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're failing. It just means your system is trying to protect you, and sometimes it's a little overzealous. And that's okay. You can work with it. You can learn from it. You can teach it to calm down, but you don't have to fix yourself to do that. You're not the problem. You never were. Chapter 12. When 60 seconds become enough. 1 minute doesn't fix everything. It gives you your choice back. When you first start using the 60-second reset, it might not feel like much. You do the steps, you notice, you ground, you breathe, you soften, and maybe the anxiety eases a little. Or maybe it doesn't. It's easy to think it's not working, to think you need something bigger, something more. A complete overhaul of your nervous system or a breakthrough moment where everything suddenly clicks. But that's not how this works. This works through repetition, through small shifts that add up over time, through proving to yourself again and again that you can intervene, that you have agency, that you're not helpless. The first few times, the 60-second reset might only take the edge off. It might calm you from an 8 to a 6. And that doesn't feel like enough when you want to be at a 0. But a 6 is different from an 8. A 6 is manageable. A 6 lets you think. A 6 lets you keep going. And over time, as you keep practicing, the reset gets stronger. Your body starts to recognize the pattern. It starts to respond faster. What used to take 5 minutes now takes 2. What used to only bring you down a little now brings you down a lot. And eventually there are moments when 60 seconds is actually enough. When you catch the anxiety early, interrupt it, and it doesn't escalate at all. That's when you realize this isn't just a tool, it's a skill. And like any skill, it gets better the more you use it. You start to recognize the early signs of anxiety before they even fully form. You catch the tightness in your chest before it becomes a racing heart. You notice the thought loop before it spirals. And because you catch it earlier, you stop it easier. You don't wait until you're drowning. You act when the water is still shallow. There's something else that happens, something quieter. When you practice intervening, when you prove to yourself over and over that you can calm yourself down, you stop being afraid of the anxiety, not completely, not always, but enough that it loses some of its power. Because you know what to do now. You know it won't last forever. You know you can handle it, and that knowing changes everything. Before, anxiety felt like an ambush, something that could strike at any moment and take over your entire day. You were afraid of it, afraid of when it would come back, afraid that next time you wouldn't be able to cope. But now, it's different. You still don't like it. It's still uncomfortable, but it's not terrifying. It's not catastrophic. It's just a thing that happens sometimes, and you know how to work with it. This is what we mean when we say 60 seconds gives you your choice back. It's not that 1 minute solves everything. It's that 1 minute interrupts the sense of helplessness. It reminds you that you're not passive, that you're not just a victim of your nervous system. You have a say, you have a response, you have a tool, and that makes all the difference. You also start to notice progress in unexpected ways. Maybe you realize you didn't have a panic attack this week. Or you did, but it only lasted 5 minutes instead of an hour. Or you were anxious, but you still showed up to the thing you were dreading. Maybe you notice that the anxiety still comes, but it doesn't knock you down as hard. Or it does knock you down, but you get back up faster. Progress with anxiety isn't linear. It doesn't look like a steady upward line. It looks like a messy graph with peaks and valleys and setbacks and breakthroughs all mixed together. But when you zoom out, when you look at the overall trend, you see it. You're doing better. You're stronger. You're more capable than you were 6 months ago, 3 months ago, even 3 weeks ago. And the 60-second reset is part of that. Not because it's magic, but because it's something you can rely on, something you can reach for, something that reminds you, in the middle of the chaos, that you know how to find your way back. Over time, you might not need the full 60 seconds anymore. You might just need 30, or 20, or one deep breath and a moment of grounding. Because your system has learned the pattern. It knows what comes next. It knows that when you pause and breathe and soften, calm follows, and so it starts to offer that calm more quickly, more easily, not every time, not in every situation, but enough that you trust it, enough that you believe in your own ability to regulate. This is the goal, not to eliminate anxiety, not to never feel it again, but to know that when it comes, you can handle it. To know that 60 seconds is enough. Not to fix everything, but to give you your ground back. To give you your breath back. To give you your choice. And from there, you can decide what comes next. You can keep going. You can rest. You can ask for help. You can stay or you can leave. But whatever you choose, it's your choice, not anxiety's. That's what freedom looks like, not the absence of fear, but the presence of agency. And 60 seconds is where it starts. Part V, closing the loop. Chapter 13. You're not trying to eliminate anxiety. Calm isn't the absence of anxiety, it's the absence of panic about it. There's a trap that a lot of people fall into. They think the goal is to get rid of anxiety completely, to reach a place where they never feel it again, where they're always calm, always steady, always in control. And they work toward that goal. They try every tool. They read every book. They practice every technique. And then anxiety shows up again, and they feel like they've failed, like all the work was for nothing, like they're back at square one, but that's not what's happening. Anxiety is part of being human. It's part of having a nervous system that's designed to keep you safe. And as long as you're alive, as long as you're navigating a world that's uncertain and complex and sometimes genuinely hard, you're going to feel anxiety sometimes. That's not failure. That's just reality. The goal was never to eliminate it. The goal was to change your relationship with it, To stop being afraid of your own fear. To stop letting it run your life. And that's a different goal entirely. When you're no longer trying to eliminate anxiety, you stop fighting with yourself. You stop resisting the feeling every time it shows up. You stop adding the second layer of suffering, the shame, the frustration, the belief that something is wrong with you. You just let it be there. Not forever, not as a permanent resident, but for the moment, for as long as it needs to move through. And in that acceptance, something shifts. The anxiety doesn't have to be as loud. It doesn't have to escalate, because it's not being resisted. It's not being fought. It's just being allowed. This doesn't mean you don't use your tools. You still intervene. You still ground. You still breathe. You still soften, but you do it from a different place. Not from desperation, not from fear, from care. You're not trying to make the anxiety go away because it's bad. You're just helping your system settle because that's kinder. That's gentler. That's what you need right now. It's a subtle difference, but it changes everything. There's also a difference between calm and numb. A lot of people think they want to feel nothing, to be unaffected, to move through life without any emotional turbulence. But that's not calm, that's disconnection. Calm is being able to feel what you feel, including anxiety, without being overwhelmed by it, without losing yourself in it, without needing it to be different before you can function. Calm is presence, groundedness, the ability to hold complexity without collapsing. And that's something you can have even when anxiety is there. When you stop trying to eliminate anxiety, you also stop giving it so much power. Because when something is forbidden, when you're constantly trying to push it away, it becomes bigger, more important, more threatening. But when you allow it, when you make space for it, it's just another feeling. Uncomfortable, yes. Unwanted, maybe, but not catastrophic. And over time, as you practice that allowing, anxiety starts to show up less. Not because you're forcing it away, but because your system no longer sees it as an emergency. It's just a signal, and signals can be acknowledged without being obeyed. You can be anxious and still trust yourself. You can be anxious and still make decisions. You can be anxious and still show up for the people you care about. Anxiety doesn't disqualify you. It doesn't mean you're not ready. It doesn't mean you need to wait until you feel better. It just means you're feeling something. And you can feel it and move forward at the same time. This is what it means to end the fight. Not to give up, not to resign yourself to suffering, but to stop making anxiety the enemy, to stop treating it like a problem that needs to be solved before you're allowed to live your life. You can live your life now, with the anxiety, alongside it, in spite of it, and as you do, as you prove to yourself that it's possible, the anxiety will start to matter less, not because it's gone, but because it's no longer in charge. Calm isn't the absence of anxiety, it's the absence of panic about it. It's the quiet confidence that says, I can handle this. I've handled it before. I'll handle it again. And that confidence doesn't come from never feeling anxious. It comes from feeling it and learning that you're still okay, that you're still here, that you're still you. Final chapter. The next time anxiety shows up. When anxiety comes back, and it will, you'll know what to do in the first 60 seconds. This is where we've been heading, not to a place where anxiety never happens, but to a place where you know how to meet it, where you don't freeze, where you don't spiral, where you don't lose yourself in it. You just respond. The next time anxiety shows up, You'll feel it coming. That familiar tightness, that shift in your breathing, that loop starting in your mind. And instead of panicking, instead of thinking, oh no, not again, you'll think, okay, I know what this is. You'll pause, just for a moment, and you'll run the sequence. Notice, ground, breathe, soften 60 seconds. And maybe it'll calm you down completely. Maybe it'll just take the edge off. But either way, you'll have responded. You'll have intervened. You'll have proven to yourself, once again, that you're not helpless, that you have tools, that you have choices, that you can work with your system instead of against it. Some days will still be hard. Some days, the anxiety will come back stronger than you expect. Some days, nothing will work the way you want it to. And that's okay. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for resilience, for the ability to bend without breaking, to stumble and still get back up. And every time you do, every time you catch the anxiety early, every time you use your tools, every time you choose to respond instead of react, you're building that resilience. You're teaching your body that it can trust you, that when it signals alarm, you'll pay attention. You'll take care of it. You won't ignore it. And you won't fight it. You'll just be there. And over time, that trust becomes the foundation of everything. Your nervous system doesn't have to scream as loud because it knows you're listening. It doesn't have to escalate as fast because it knows you'll respond. And so the anxiety becomes quieter, less frequent, less intense, not gone, but manageable. And here's what you'll notice. The more you practice, the more you'll realize that anxiety isn't the worst thing that can happen. Discomfort isn't the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing is feeling helpless, feeling like you have no control, feeling like you're at the mercy of your own mind and body. But you're not. You never were. You just needed to learn how to interrupt the loop, how to catch it early, how to respond in the first 60 seconds. And now you know. The next time anxiety shows up, it won't feel like an ambush. It'll feel like something you recognize, something you've met before, something you know how to handle. It won't be easy, but it'll be familiar. And familiar is so much better than terrifying. You'll also start to notice the moments when anxiety doesn't show up, the moments when you're just okay, when your system is calm and you're not even thinking about it. Those moments matter. They're proof that calm is possible, that your nervous system can settle, that you're not broken. And the more you notice them, the more they expand. This is the work, not dramatic, not fast, just consistent, just showing up for yourself again and again in the small moments, in the hard moments, in the moments when it would be easier to give up. But you don't give up, because you know now that change is possible, that you can get better at this, that every time you interrupt the anxiety, you're training your system to respond differently, and that training adds up. So the next time anxiety shows up, you'll be ready, not because you've figured out how to stop it forever, but because you've figured out how to work with it, how to meet it where it is, how to give yourself what you need in the moment. And that's everything. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to know what to do when fear shows up. And now you do. Closing. You've made it to the end, not just of this book, but of a way of relating to anxiety that wasn't working. You know now that anxiety isn't your enemy. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not proof that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's just your system trying to protect you. And sometimes it's a little overzealous, a little too quick to sound the alarm. But you can work with that. You can teach it to calm down. You can interrupt the loop before it takes over. You can do all of that in 60 seconds. This doesn't mean you'll never feel anxious again. You will, but when you do, you'll have something you didn't have before. You'll have a response, a tool, a way forward. You'll have the knowledge that you can handle it, that you've handled it before, that you'll handle it again, and that knowledge, that quiet confidence, is worth more than the absence of anxiety ever could be. So carry this with you, the 60-second reset. Be understanding that calm is possible even when fear is present. The permission to be human, to struggle, to not have it all figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present, to notice, to respond, and you can do that. You already have. Thank you for being here, for listening, for giving yourself this time. Whatever comes next, you're ready for it, not because you won't feel afraid, but because you know what to do when you do. You've got this.